If you're a fan of Inazuma 11, then tell me, what do you know about Eugene Conwell? Wait, you don't know about Eugene? Raimon's most powerful striker? The true hero of the Alias arc? The greatest player in Nara? Still not ringing any bells? Well, if you're someone who only watched the anime and didn't play the games, then yeah, you'll probably have no clue who this mythical, non-existent character I'm claiming as part of the Raimon 11 is, so allow me to introduce you to Eugene Conwell, aka Nakatani Masashi, the GOAT of the Inazuma 11 2 games. Basically, for those unfamiliar with the story of Inazuma 11 2, after you win the Inter-School Football Frontier tournament, Japan gets invaded by aliens who threaten to go around terrorizing the country and destroying schools unless you, of course, beat them at football. Unfortunately, half your team gets nuked and sent to the hospital when you try to oppose them, and you're left with only a few members remaining. As such, your goal now becomes to rebuild and assemble the strongest team in Japan, so you can avenge your teammates and your school once and for all. Your journey initially takes you to Nara, the aliens' next target, which also happens to be the home of the Prime Minister of Japan. Naturally, the aliens kidnap the Prime Minister, and you, a middle school football team, try to investigate the scene of the abduction, the TV station. In an actually somewhat realistic turn of events, the police bar you from entering because you are, well, just a bunch of kids. So you need to find a way to make them take you seriously, and the solution is to find someone with enough clout to simply convince the police to let you in. Enter Eugene Conwell. Eugene Conwell is effectively your tutorial for using the connection map for recruiting players. He's the first player you scout for your team using this method, but he's no ordinary scout. Oh no. There's a reason you recruit him specifically, and that's because Eugene Conwell has a bit of a reputation. A reputation for being the greatest player in the city of Nara. He joins your team, and with him on side, you approach the police officer guarding the TV station again. This time, things go a little differently. To put it simply, the guard is starstruck. Just look at this dialogue, man. Hey, aren't you Eugene Conwell? The living legend? The one and only? The most famous footballer in Nara? If you've managed to get him on your side, then you kids must be something special. Dude, they hype this guy up so much, it's incredible. Like, this man's aura alone is enough to grant you access to a heavily guarded crime scene, and that's kind of hilarious. Granted, this is like the only cutscene that Eugene Conwell appears in the whole game, but it's a pretty strong first impression. Despite his limited screen time, Eugene is actually quite popular in small corners of the fan base, and there's quite a lot of factors that play into this. For one, it's actually mandatory to recruit him in order to progress, so everyone who plays through Inazuma 11 2 will at some point have this guy on their team. Now, based on the way that police officer was talking about him, you'd think that Eugene Conwell is some insanely strong player, and don't get me wrong, he isn't weak by any stretch of the imagination, but his stats aren't really anything to write home about. The real strength of Eugene Conwell comes from his utility. You see, Eugene comes with a Hisatsu technique known as heel kick, which is a shot that, while not particularly strong, does not cost much to use at all. This means that there are some great use cases for it, as it effectively allows you to force the hand of the opposing goalkeepers. If the goalie chooses not to use a Hisatsu technique to block heel kick, it's likely that they'll concede a goal. However, if they do use a Hisatsu to stop the shot, they'll end up draining large amounts of TP in doing so, while you only use a little bit with heel kick. The fact that it's so economical means that you can use it many times in one match, allowing you to wear down your opponent with ease. Pretty neat. The other thing that makes Eugene Conwell stand out in Inazuma 11 2 is his position as a forward, because in this game, you're really deficient in them. I mean, Goenji, your ace striker, leaves super early on, Sumeoka gets injured, Rika doesn't join until later, Fubiki goes through some stuff, and well, Megane is Megane. But do you know who is always there and will never let you down? Eugene Conwell, baby, the greatest player in Nara. Having him consistently there as a striker you can rely upon is very nice, and I think it's a big part of the reason that people still remember this guy to this day. I for one used him on my team all the way through the game, including in the final boss fight. But Eugene's story doesn't end there. In Inazuma 11 3, you can once again recruit him and take him to the world stage as part of Inazuma National. Of course, he returns with his signature heel kick, but he also gains a couple of moves from the Alias team, games, namely Lightning Sprint and Gaia Break. I always thought this was a neat detail. It's like he picked up some techniques in the fight against Alias Academy and added them to his own repertoire. If that doesn't show his abilities as a player, I don't know what does. Now, the Go series took place some time after the original, so naturally a lot of the older characters, particularly the non-story relevant ones, were absent in the first set of Go games. However, with Go Chronostones placing a large emphasis on time travel, yes, this is still a football RPG, you're able to travel back in time to the era of the original characters, and with this, a handful of scout characters were chosen to return alongside the main cast. Of course, among these returning scout characters was none other than Eugene Nakatani Conwell. Not only is he back, but he is stronger than ever before because, out of nowhere, they randomly decided to give this guy a Keshin. Basically the Inazuma 11 equivalent of a stand, a privilege that's typically only reserved for the more important characters. It's a pretty strong one too, a Warrior of the East Kinglong, which is like a better version of the one that, Zhuge Liang gets. Yeah, still a football RPG by the way. In Go Galaxy, Conwell returned alongside Heel Kick, which was absent in Chronostones, but what's particularly interesting about his appearance in this game is not necessarily his moveset. You see, Inazuma 11 Go Galaxy introduced the mechanic of Legend Gates, essentially where you relive history and re-experience matches from across the series using predetermined team builds. Now, one of these Legend Gates pits you against the Genesis, aka the final, with an asterisk, boss of Inazuma 11 2. Naturally, the team that you play as is the Raimon from the second game, and at first, nothing seems out of the ordinary. But if you look at the substitute lineup, you'll note the presence of one particular character. That's right, the man, the myth, the legend, the greatest player in Nara, Eugene Conwell is officially considered part of the team in the game's canon. The fact that they still remembered this guy's existence all those years later and gave him this little bit of recognition, as small as it seems, is honestly kind of incredible to me. Now, of course, with Victory Road bringing back pretty much every character in the entire series, it's only natural that our GOAT made his return once more. Eugene Conwell can be recruited from the Caravan constellation in the player's universe, which is a nice reference to his debut in the second game. Now, typically in this game, a lot of the scout characters get shafted in terms of stats, but not Eugene. He's one of the select few that they cherry-pick to make stronger than the rest. However, when the game first launched, there was one key thing that was missing: his signature move. That wasn't an issue for long though, as in the Go Galaxy content update, Heel Kick made its grand return. Naturally, as soon as the move was added, the first thing I did was buy it from the shop and put it where it rightfully belongs in Eugene's moveset. Then I rushed into a match to see it in action, and I was met with a surprise. Did you hear that? No, your ears do not deceive you. That was Eugene Conwell saying Abiseguri, which is the Japanese name for heel kick. That's right, they gave Eugene Conwell a voice. I know from an outside perspective this does not sound like anything crazy, but you have to bear in mind, this guy has never appeared in the anime, thus making this his first ever voiced appearance. To my knowledge, this makes him the only character to have not appeared in the anime, the movies, or the Strikers games on the Wii to have a voice in Victory Road. The level of fan service, the level of preferential treatment that this guy has received compared to the other scouts needs to be studied. Also, prior to this, fans had pretty much been calling heel kick Eugene's move, but it was never officially confirmed as such. In fact, when it was added to Inazuma 11 2, it was probably intended to just be a filler Hisatsu to give some of the random scouts, but the fact that Eugene specifically has a voice line for it is good enough confirmation for me that heel kick is indeed his signature move. What's more is that he actually has a special line for when he scores a goal. I didn't catch this at first because it's in Japanese, so I thought this line was just a generic one, but if you translate it, it turns out that he's actually saying something to the effect of, "The name Nara's strongest ain't just for show." What a line. They showed Eugene so much love, man. They even brought back his Keshin in the Aries update. I've been trying to create the perfect moveset for him, and I think I've landed on something pretty solid with this build here. Honestly, I've been loving Inazuma 11 Victory Road, in part because it's evident just how much love and passion has been poured into the game. The attention to detail that they showed for Eugene Conwell of all characters, this random scout who's popular among a small group of fans, is a prime example of this, and more importantly, it shows that even level 5 knows that Eugene Conwell is the GOAT.